I never thought the woman I spent 25 years with would betray me like this. It all started with a gut feeling, a cold distance creeping between us. Subtle, but undeniable. And when I discovered the truth, it shattered everything. But what happened next? That's where the real story begins. Rebecca and I had been together for over 2 decades, raising our son, Noah, in what I thought was a strong and loving marriage. With Noah now living independently, balancing college and a promising career, it was just the two of us at home. We had built a life together. We had traditions, Sunday morning coffee, Friday night movies, and spontaneous weekend getaways. We had been through so much, career shifts, financial ups and downs, family emergencies, but we always faced them together. At least that's what I thought. And then, things changed. At first, it was small. Rebecca, my wife, became distant, preoccupied. Conversations felt forced, her laughter seemed hollow, and worst of all, she started rejecting intimacy. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Maybe work was overwhelming her. Maybe she was going through something she didn't know how to talk about, but then I started noticing more. She was glued to her phone, always texting, smiling at the screen. If I walked into the room, she would quickly lock it and put it away. She started staying out later than usual, making excuses about work meetings that never used to happen. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself that I was overthinking things. After 25 years together, why would she suddenly betray me? But my gut told me otherwise. And my gut was right. Something didn't add up, and I couldn't ignore my instincts. So I did what I had never done before. I checked our phone records. And there it was, a single number, over 1,000 texts, and countless calls exchanged in just a few months. My heart pounded as I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. Who was this? What was she hiding? I sat there for hours, scrolling through the records. I cross-referenced timestamps, late-night calls, early morning messages. She had been communicating with this person constantly, sometimes even while sitting right next to me. My mind raced with scenarios. Could it really just be an innocent friendship? Or was this something more? I copied the number and ran a quick search. Nothing came up immediately, but I wasn't stopping there. I downloaded a reverse phone lookup app and entered the number. And that's when I saw it. A name. Someone I had never heard of. Someone she had never mentioned. I clicked on his profile and my stomach dropped. He wasn't just some distant friend or colleague. He was young, good-looking, and had a certain charm in his photos. The kind of charm that made my blood boil. I checked his social media, scrolling through his pictures, his posts. He was active, engaging, someone who clearly enjoyed the attention. And as I looked deeper, I found something even worse. Playful messages, flirty remarks, inside jokes that I wasn't a part of. This wasn't just casual. This was calculated. My hands shook as I placed my phone down. I felt sick. The woman I had built my life with, the woman I trusted with my heart, was sneaking around behind my back. I needed answers, and I was going to get them. The next morning I could barely breathe, let alone sit still. My hands were clammy, my heart racing with a mixture of anger, hurt, and betrayal. How could she do this to me? After 25 years together, how could she betray my trust so easily? I knew I had to confront her. I had to face her and hear it from her lips. I found her sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. Her usual calm demeanor now seemed like a mask she was struggling to hold on to. She looked up as I entered, her eyes darting quickly to the side, avoiding mine. My chest tightened. I couldn't hold it in any longer. "Rebecca," I said, my voice a little shaky, but I couldn't let her see my weakness. "We need to talk. About him. Who is he? Why are you texting him all the time?" For a second, she didn't say anything. She swallowed hard, her fingers fidgeting with her phone, clearly trying to gather her thoughts, but I could see the panic behind her eyes. "It's nothing, Liam," she said too quickly, her voice rising with a forced calmness. "It's just harmless flirting. Just texting, that's all. Nothing more. How could she say that? Harmless flirting after 25 years of marriage. I leaned forward, my voice low but cutting. Harmless flirting? I repeated, my eyes narrowing. You've been texting this guy over 1,000 times in the last few months, Rebecca. And you're telling me it's harmless? If it's nothing, why have you been hiding it from me? Why not tell me about it? Why not mention him? She shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her gaze now completely avoiding mine. I could see the walls going up, the defenses, the lies being built. I didn't want to hurt you, Liam, she muttered, her voice soft, but the lack of sincerity stung. It's just someone I talked to, someone to vent to. It wasn't a big deal, just someone to pass the time with. Her words didn't make any sense. This wasn't just someone. This wasn't a harmless chat. I had seen the records. I had seen how late they talked, how often they talked. The texts were filled with laughter, inside jokes, flirtations. It was as if she was building something in secret, a whole world I wasn't a part of. My stomach twisted. If it's not a big deal? Then why the secrecy? Why did you delete all the texts? Why did you hide it? Why are you locking your phone when I walk in the room? She paused, a brief flash of guilt flickering in her eyes before she quickly wiped it away with another hollow smile. I wasn't hiding anything, Liam. I just didn't want to upset you. I didn't want you to think it was something serious. This wasn't just flirting. This was something deeper, something she was trying so hard to cover up. So what? You were just chatting with him all this time and didn't think I'd notice? Didn't think I'd care? It's not like that, I swear. We're just talking. There's nothing else. I promise. So, you're telling me that all those late-night texts, all those calls, are just harmless? I could see her struggle. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. I couldn't let her get away with this. What else, Rebecca? What are you hiding? I pressed, my voice growing more urgent. What's going on? Tell me the truth. If you really loved me, you'd tell me the truth. Her eyes darted around the room as if searching for a way out. Then with a small sigh, she spoke, almost in a whisper. Okay, we've met a couple of times, but it's nothing serious, Liam. Just a few minutes here and there. Nothing big. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. A few minutes? I repeated, my voice thick with disbelief. Is that supposed to make it okay? You've been meeting him behind my back, and you expect me to believe it's nothing? How long has this been going on? She hesitated. I don't know. Maybe 2 or 3 times in the last few months. But that's all. I swear. The truth was coming out, but it wasn't enough. So, you've been meeting him behind my back, I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. And you want me to accept that? You think I'm just supposed to ignore this? I'm done, Rebecca, I said, my voice a harsh whisper. This isn't something I can forgive. And, in that moment, I knew that everything had changed. Hey, quick favor. If you're enjoying the story so far, a like would mean the world. It really helps the channel grow and keeps these stories coming. There had to be more. There always was. And I wasn't about to let her brush me off with half-truths. I needed answers, and I was going to get them. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Her behavior, the late-night texts, the secrecy, it was all so out of character. This wasn't some casual fling. This was deliberate. It was planned. I couldn't help myself. I needed to dig deeper. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves as I grabbed her phone from the counter. What I found shook me to the core. The texts were still there, despite her claim of deleting them. I scrolled through message after message, flirtatious words, inside jokes, plans to meet up, that sounded increasingly intimate. I could feel my heart racing with each word I read. I wasn't just looking at words now. I was looking at the lie she had been feeding me for months, maybe longer. And I wanted to know who this man was. I pulled up the number from the phone records and did something I never thought I would. I Googled it. The search results hit me like a punch in the stomach. There he was, an image of him on a social media account, his face, his name, and most importantly, where he worked. It wasn't hard to put the pieces together. I was staring at a man who was not just a stranger, but someone who had been lying in the shadows of our lives. His name was Jordan Miles, a few years younger than me, but it wasn't the age gap that cut through me. It was the realization that he was the one who had been occupying the space I thought was just ours. He worked at a high-end restaurant in the city. I had never heard of him before, but I could see how easily he had slipped into the cracks of our life. I pulled up his social media profiles. Rebecca's name, hidden in the background of group photos tagged in posts of nights out together. And then I saw the messages, the ones she'd been too careful to delete, the pictures, the jokes, the flirtations. This was real. This was an affair, an emotional affair, a physical one, and God knows what else. I knew it was time to confront her again. But this time, I had more than just a few texts. I had the whole truth laid out in front of me. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not again. I put the phone down, my mind racing. My thoughts were a blur of anger, pain, and confusion. But one thing was crystal clear. She had crossed a line, and she knew it. The worst part? I had been so blind, so trusting, that I couldn't even see it happening. It was time to confront her again, but this time there would be no more lies. No more pretending. I had the proof, and I was done being the fool. I waited until she came home that evening. She walked in, casual as usual, almost as if nothing had changed. "Rebecca, we need to talk." "I know everything," I said, my voice hard, steady. My words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. She froze in the doorway, her eyes widening, her face draining of color as she registered the gravity of what I was saying. "What are you talking about?" she stammered, but the panic in her voice was unmistakable. She knew. "Don't lie to me." I spat, my anger rising, sharp and venomous. "I know about Jordan. I know about the affair. The texts, the calls, the meetings. You can't keep denying it. I've seen it all." Her face crumbled. For a brief moment, I saw the mask fall, revealing a person I didn't recognize. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. "You told me it was just flirting. You told me it was nothing. But now I know that's all a lie. How long were you planning to keep this from me? How long were you planning to keep me in the dark?" She began to tremble, her hands shaking as she tried to gather herself. "Liam, I never meant for this to happen," she whispered, her voice faltering. She took a step toward me, but I took a step back, every inch of my body rejecting her. It just happened. A few times in his bedroom. I don't know what came over me." "You don't know what came over you?" I repeated, disbelief coloring my voice. "You don't know what came over you? You don't get to act like this is some kind of mistake. This wasn't a slip-up, Rebecca. This was a decision you made over and over again." Her eyes filled with tears. She took another shaky step toward me, but I couldn't bring myself to let her close. "I was lonely," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Things between us, they weren't the same anymore. I didn't know how to talk to you about it, Liam. I didn't know how to fix it, so I found someone else to talk to. Someone who made me feel noticed, and it turned into something more. I'm so sorry." Lonely. She was lonely? After all we had been through, after all the years we spent together, this was how she explained it? She had broken our vows, destroyed everything we had built, and now she was telling me it was because she was lonely? I could feel my heart shattering, but the anger was stronger than the pain. "You couldn't talk to me? You couldn't come to me with your problems? I would have listened, Rebecca. I would have done anything to fix things. But you went behind my back. You hid it from me. You betrayed me." She collapsed into a chair, her face in her hands as the sobs racked her body. I stood there, unable to move, watching her break down. A part of me felt a satisfaction seeing her finally face the consequences of her actions. But the other part of me, the part that loved her for so long, wanted to scream, wanted to shake her, and ask how she could do this to us, to our family, to our life. Why didn't you just tell me? Why didn't you talk to me before it got this far? She looked up at me, her face stained with tears. I didn't know how to fix it, Liam. I didn't know how to fix us. I stared at her, the woman I had once trusted more than anything, now a stranger. There was nothing left to say. The words felt empty. Don't, I said, my voice cold. Don't try to fix it now. It's too late for that. And in that moment, I realized there was nothing she could say or do to make this right. The trust was shattered, and no apology could rebuild what had been broken. I didn't wait for her to speak again. I turned away, unable to stomach any more of her lies. I had been a fool, but not anymore. There was no coming back from this. The man I once was, the one who believed in her, in us, was gone. And now, all that was left was the fallout. The first few days after we agreed to separate, Rebecca seemed oddly calm, almost too calm. She packed her things, gathered her clothes, and told me she'd be staying at a friend's house for a while. The fact that she was so quick to walk away without even a hint of regret made something inside me snap. I thought I'd feel relief, but I couldn't shake the feeling of irony. She had destroyed everything we had, but it seemed like she was already moving on with a sense of nonchalance, as if this whole affair had no lasting impact on her life. But as the days turned into weeks, the reality began to hit her in ways I didn't expect. While I was focused on finding my own peace, trying to rebuild my life from the ashes of what she had set fire to, I started hearing things. Small whispers, stories from mutual friends. Rebecca was not okay. She had always been the one to keep things under control, the one to smooth over every wrinkle. Now, she couldn't even keep her own life in order. It started with the fact that she had nowhere to go. At first, I didn't think much of it. She said she would be staying with a friend, and I assumed that was just a temporary fix. But days turned into weeks, and I learned she was still crashing on that friend's couch. No permanent place to stay. No plan for her future. No stability. It was ironic, really. Here was the woman who had once built a life so carefully. A life we had shared for over 25 years, now reduced to nothing more than a suitcase and a broken heart. The man she had turned to for comfort, Jordan, was nowhere to be found. He wasn't quite as ready to sweep her into his arms as she had hoped. After all, he had his own life to manage, his roommates, his own job, his own responsibilities. And, apparently, Rebecca's affair wasn't enough to make him want to jump into a new life with her. I heard through the grapevine that she had tried to reach out to him several times, but each time he had shut her down. He wasn't interested in playing the role she had imagined for him. That image she had painted of a new life, a new beginning with her lover, crumbled faster than she could put it together. She had put all her hopes into this man, only to find that he wasn't the escape she had thought he was. As the weeks dragged on, her social media accounts began to reflect the truth. Gone were the photos of happy get-togethers with friends. Instead, there were posts of loneliness, selfies that spoke volumes about her inner turmoil, capturing the side of her desperation. The carefully curated image of a perfect life she had, always projected, began to crack and fall apart in front of everyone's eyes. Friends who once admired her were now offering sympathy instead of praise. 3 months had passed since our separation. I was in my new apartment, adjusting to a life without her, finally finding some peace. And then, one morning, my phone rang. It was Rebecca. I almost didn't answer, but something inside me couldn't resist. I picked up, and the moment I heard her voice, I knew exactly what she was going to say. "Please, Liam," she begged, her voice strained with desperation. "Please don't tell anyone about the affair. It'll ruin everything. It'll ruin his reputation. You know how this will look." There it was. The irony was too much to bear. The woman who had shattered my world, who had betrayed me without a second thought, was now asking me for mercy. She was concerned about his reputation. After everything, she was more concerned about protecting the man who had helped her tear apart our family than she was about the destruction she had caused. Couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "You really care about his reputation now?" I asked, my voice flat. "Where was that concern when you were lying to me? Where was that concern when you were in his arms, betraying everything we had built?" Her words faltered. I could hear her panic rising as she realized the depth of her mistake. "Liam, please, it's not what you think. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was doing." But it was too late. The damage was done. I had already seen the truth. Her pleas meant nothing now. I hung up the phone, closing the chapter on a life I once thought I would cherish forever. The irony of it all wasn't lost on me. She had ruined everything we had, and now she was left with nothing. Not even the one man she had risked everything for was there to catch her. The life she had dreamed of, the new beginning she thought she was building, was nothing but a mirage. Meanwhile, I had moved on. I had found a new apartment, a new sense of independence, and peace that I hadn't felt in years. I could finally breathe again. What would you have done? Exposed her to everyone or walked away in silence? Comment below. I want to hear your thoughts, and if you've ever been in a situation like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because trust me, there's more where this came from.